The Winchester cracked across the valley like Judgment Day. Cole Mitchell's weathered hands froze on the branding iron as the echo rolled through Devil's Canyon, wrong and sharp in the morning stillness. That wasn't the sound of hunting. That was the sound of murder. He dropped the iron and sprinted toward the ranch house, his boots pounding against the hard-packed earth. 20 years of peaceful mornings shattered by that single gunshot. 20 years since he'd last heard that particular music of violence calling his name. Through the kitchen window, he saw them. 3 riders in black dusters, faces hidden beneath wide-brimmed hats. His wife, Sarah, stood in the doorway, her hands raised in surrender. Behind her, barely visible in the shadows, 16-year-old Tommy pressed himself against the wall. "Sarah, get down!" Cole's shout split the air. The lead rider's gun bucked. Sarah crumpled, auburn hair fanning across the threshold like spilled wine. The bullet had taken her through the heart. Clean, professional, final. "No!" Tommy bolted from the house, fury overcoming fear. The second rider's lasso snaked out, caught the boy around the waist, jerked him from his feet. Tommy hit the ground hard, stunned long enough for rough hands to haul him across the saddle. Cole's Colt materialized in his fist, 20 years of rust falling away in an instant. The lead rider turned toward him, and Cole saw the face beneath the hat brim, lean features, cold eyes. A scar running from left temple to jawline. Marcus Blackwood, Samuel's younger brother, the face that had haunted Cole's dreams for 2 decades. Iron Hand Mitchell. Marcus's voice carried across the yard like winter wind. "Been a long time." The range was 200 yards, possible shot, but not with Tommy slung across that horse like a sack of grain. Cole held his fire, watched his son disappear into the dust cloud, kicked up by galloping horses. A single piece of paper fluttered from Marcus's hand, caught by the morning breeze. It danced across the yard like a dying moth before settling against Sarah's still form. Cole's knees hit the porch boards beside his wife. 23 years of marriage reduced to this. Cooling flesh and empty eyes staring at nothing. The ring he'd placed on her finger in a Denver chapel caught the sunlight one last time. The paper bore familiar handwriting, spider-thin and precise. "Iron Hand Mitchell. 20 years ago, you murdered my brother Samuel outside Dodge City. Called it justice. Called him a killer. Now you know how justice feels. Your boy waits at Devil's Peak. Come alone. Come armed. Time to settle the blood debt. Marcus Blackwood." Cole crushed the note in his fist. Samuel Blackwood. The memory rose unbidden. A dusty street, the smell of gunpowder, a bank robber's last draw. Samuel had killed 3 people in that Dodge City bank, including a pregnant woman. The bounty was $500, dead or alive. Samuel chose to make it dead, but Marcus had been 17 then, just a kid watching his older brother's reputation grow with each kill. Now he was a man with his own gang, his own grievances, his own appetite for vengeance. Cole stood slowly, his joints protesting years of honest labor. The gun belt felt strange around his waist after so long, like putting on the skin of a man he'd tried to forget. But some things once learned never truly left you. The ride to town passed in grim silence. Mesquite and sagebrush blurred past as Cole pushed his horse hard toward Copper Springs. Sheriff Jake Harrison would need to know about Sarah, about Tommy, about the reckoning that had finally come calling. Jake stood on his office porch as if he'd been expecting this visit. 20 years of friendship had taught him to read the weather in Cole's face. "Heard gunshots from your direction," Jake said quietly. "Bad news?" "Sarah's dead. Marcus Blackwood took Tommy." Jake's weathered features went stone hard. "Blackwood's running with 12 guns these days. Controls everything from Devil's Peak to the territorial border. His gang's wanted for bank robbery, murder, cattle rustling. But he's smart. Keeps his hands clean, lets his boys do the dirty work. Not today. Today he got his hands plenty dirty." Cole, you can't take them alone. Let me wire the territorial marshal. Get a proper posse. By the time help arrives, Tommy will be dead. Cole swung back into his saddle. This debt's 20 years overdue. Time to pay it in full. Jake caught his horse's bridle. At least take Carlos Hernandez with you. He rode in this morning. Says he's got business with Blackwood, too. Cole's pulse quickened. Carlos Hernandez, the Sonoran gunfighter who'd rode with him during the Apache troubles of '68. Fast as chain lightning and twice as deadly. If Carlos wanted Marcus Blackwood, there had to be blood between them. Where is he? Saloon. Been nursing the same whiskey for 2 hours, waiting for you to show up. The Broken Wheel Saloon squatted at the end of Main Street like a toad in the dust. Cole pushed through the bat-wing doors into air thick with tobacco smoke and the sour smell of spilled beer. At a corner table sat a figure from his past. Carlos Hernandez looked like he'd aged well. Still lean, still dangerous, still wearing his guns low and loose for the fast draw. Silver streaked his black hair now, and new scars decorated his knuckles. But his eyes held the same predatory gleam Cole remembered. Amigo, Carlos raised his glass in mock salute. I heard about your trouble, about your wife. Lo siento. Your trouble too, I'm guessing. Cole pulled out a chair, settled across from the Mexican gunfighter. What's Marcus Blackwood to you? Carlos's smile held no warmth. 3 months ago, his boys hit my ranch down in Sonora, killed my vaqueros, burned my house, stole my cattle. But that wasn't enough for Senor Blackwood. He also killed my daughter Elena, shot her down when she tried to run. Cole felt ice water in his veins. How old? 15. Same age I was when I first strapped on these guns. Carlos touched his Colts with gentle fingers. Some debts can only be paid in blood, old friend. Then we ride together, like the old days. See, like the old days. But first, Carlos leaned forward, lowered his voice. There is something you should know about Marcus Blackwood, something that changes everything. Cole waited, studying his old partner's face. He has been planning this for 20 years, Cole, ever since Dodge City. The ranch attacks, the robberies, the killings, all of it was practice. Building his reputation, gathering his guns, waiting for the right moment to take his revenge. You're saying this was all about me? I'm saying Marcus Blackwood is not just another outlaw seeking easy money. He is a man with a mission, and that makes him 10 times more dangerous than any common bandito. They finished their drinks in contemplative silence. Outside, the sun climbed toward its zenith, marking time until the final confrontation. Cole checked his Colt's action one more time, counted his cartridges, 18 rounds for the long gun, 6 in the pistol. Not much against 12 men, but it would have to do. The trail to Devil's Peak began 5 miles north of town, winding through country that looked like God's first draft of hell. Red rock formations jutted from the earth like broken bones. Buzzards circled overhead, patient as undertakers waiting for business. By late afternoon, they'd reached the first checkpoint, a narrow gap between towering stone walls where the trail bottlenecked. Perfect place for an ambush. 2 guards, Carlos whispered, studying the position through field glasses. One on each side of the gap, about 50 yards apart. Cole nodded. You take the left, I'll take the right. On my signal. They separated, moving through the rocks like ghosts. Cole worked his way up the cliff face, using handholds carved by wind and weather. Below him, one of Blackwood's men leaned against a boulder, rifle across his knees, hat tilted over his eyes. Cole's knife slid between the guard's ribs before the man could draw breath to scream. Across the gap, Carlos's blade found its mark with equal silence. 2 down, 10 to go. The bodies went over the cliff, food for whatever scavengers called this wasteland home. In the high country, men disappeared all the time. The frontier had always been hungry for the careless and the unlucky. They pushed deeper into Blackwood's territory as shadows lengthened toward evening. The second camp lay hidden in a box canyon, invisible from the main trail, except for the thin line of smoke rising from their cook fire. 5 men around the flames, playing cards and passing a bottle, confident in their isolation, careless in their security. They died hard, but they died fast. Carlos's rifle speaking from the rocks, while Cole's Colt finished the work up close. 7 down, Carlos counted, reloading by firelight. 5 to go, plus Marcus himself. Cole said nothing. Each death brought him closer to Tommy, closer to the confrontation that had been building for 20 years. The weight of the past pressed down on him like a physical thing, heavy as grave dirt. They made cold camp in the rocks above the box canyon, taking turns on watch. During Cole's shift, Carlos spoke quietly into the darkness. "There is something else, amigo. Something I have not told you." Cole waited, watching the stars wheel overhead. "Marcus Blackwood approached me 6 months ago, offered me money to join his gang. When I refused, he made threats. When I still refused..." Carlos's voice trailed off. "What?" "He offered me something else. He offered me you." The words hung between them like a blade. Cole's hand drifted toward his gun. "He knew we had history together, knew we had ridden as partners. He wanted me to betray you when the time came, lead you into his trap. And..." Carlos was quiet for a long moment. "I told him I would consider his offer. Let him think I might be bought. It was the only way to learn his plans, to discover where he would take your son." Cole relaxed slightly but kept his hand near his weapon. Trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, not even with old friends. "Why tell me this now?" "Because tomorrow we face the final test, and I want you to know, whatever happens up there, whatever it looks like, remember that some debts are worth more than money. Some friendships are worth more than gold." Above them, Devil's Peak thrust into the star-scattered sky like a black fang. Somewhere near its summit, Marcus Blackwood waited with Tommy and the last of his guns. The end of the trail, the end of everything, one way or another. Dawn broke red over Devil's Peak, painting the snow-covered summit the color of fresh blood. Cole and Carlos crouched in the rocks below Marcus Blackwood's stronghold, studying the fortress carved from living stone. The compound squatted on a granite shelf, approachable only by a switchback trail that zigged and zagged up the exposed mountain face. Log palisades crowned with sharpened stakes, guard towers at the corners, a single gate facing downslope, heavy timber bound with iron. And there, tied to a post in the center of the compound, a figure that made Cole's heart hammer against his ribs. Tommy, alive, battered but breathing. "Classic defensive position," Carlos murmured. "High ground, clear fields of fire, only one approach." "Two approaches." Cole pointed to the cliff face behind the stronghold. "Water has to come from somewhere. There'll be a back way to the spring." They spent the morning mapping the defenses. 5 guards visible, probably the same number inside. Marcus himself appeared twice, a tall figure in a black duster who moved with the easy confidence of a man who believed himself untouchable. "I'm going up the back way when darkness falls," Cole decided. "You wait here. When you hear shooting, hit the front gate hard. Make them think the main attack's coming from below." Carlos nodded, then hesitated. "Cole, there is one more thing. When we get inside..." "What?" "Just remember what I told you about debts and friendship." The climb began 2 hours after sunset, Cole working his way up the watercourse that fed the compound spring. 60 feet of near-vertical granite, handholds worn smooth by countless seasons. The Colt rode heavy on his hip, a familiar weight that whispered promises of justice and death. The spring bubbled from a crack in the mountain skull, crystal-clear water that had never known the taste of blood. A game trail, narrow as hope, led down through the rocks to where the palisade met the cliff face. Cole lowered himself over the rear wall, landing silent as shadow in the compound's heart. The guard in the nearest tower died without a sound, steel parting flesh and windpipe in one smooth stroke. Cole caught the body before it could fall and raised the alarm. Two more guards patrolled the perimeter. They joined their friend in silence, victims of a knife that had learned its trade in darker wars than this. Cole gathered their weapons, two rifles, a handful of cartridges. Not much, but enough to tip the balance when the real shooting started, which would be soon. Carlos was due to begin his diversionary attack any moment. The explosion came like the world ending. Not dynamite, but Carlos's rifle speaking thunder from the rocks below. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness as he poured lead into the front gate, making it sound like a full assault. Shouts erupted from the main building, boots on wooden floors, the sound of desperate men scrambling for weapons and positions. Marcus Blackwood emerged like a devil from hell, a brace of army Colts in his hands and murder in his pale eyes. Behind him came four more gunmen, spreading out to defend the compound's approaches. "Iron Hand Mitchell," Marcus called into the darkness. "I know you're here. Come out and face me like a man." Cole stepped from the shadows near the main building, the captured rifles trained on the group. "I'm here, Marcus. Let's finish this. 20 years I've waited for this moment." Marcus smiled, white teeth gleaming in his weathered face. 20 years planning your destruction. Your wife was just the beginning. She never hurt anyone. Neither did my brother Samuel, until you made him into a killer, until you drove him to that bank in Dodge City with your relentless pursuit. Cole blinked, confused. Samuel robbed that bank, killed 3 people, including a pregnant woman. "Samuel was never in Dodge City," Marcus said quietly. "That was me using his name. I was the one you tracked. I was the one you cornered outside that saloon. I was the one who should have died in that street." The revelation hit Cole like a physical blow. "You. My brother died of consumption 6 months before Dodge City, but his reputation lived on. I used his name, his legend, to build my own. And when you finally caught up with Samuel Blackwood, I let you think you'd killed the right man." Cole's world tilted on its axis. 20 years of guilt, 20 years of believing he'd killed a man in fair combat, and it had all been a lie. "Why?" he whispered. "Because I wanted you to suffer as I had suffered. I wanted you to build a life, find happiness, start a family, and then I wanted to take it all away, piece by piece, until you understood what loss truly meant." The compound's defenders had spread out now, rifles trained on Cole from multiple angles. Marcus held all the cards, controlled all the variables, except one. "Carlos!" Marcus called toward the rocks below. "You can come out now. Your part is finished." To Cole's horror, Carlos appeared at the front gate, his hands empty, his weapons holstered. He walked into the compound like a man coming home. "Excellent work, my friend," Marcus continued, leading him here, keeping him distracted, making sure he came alone. "The money we discussed will be waiting in Tucson, as promised." Cole's blood turned to ice water. "Carlos?" The Mexican gunfighter met his eyes, and Cole saw something there. Regret, perhaps, or the weight of unavoidable choices. "Some debts are too large to ignore, amigo," Carlos said quietly. "My daughter, my ranch, my pride. Marcus owns them all now, and a man must eat." "Very touching," Marcus interrupted, "but enough sentiment. Cole Mitchell, you have a choice. Drop your weapons and die quick, or watch your boy die slow while you helpless to stop it." Cole looked at Tommy, tied and bleeding but still defiant. Looked at Carlos, his oldest friend turned Judas for 30 pieces of silver. Looked at Marcus Blackwood, the architect of 20 years of deception and pain. The rifles felt impossibly heavy in his hands. "Drop them," Marcus repeated. "Now!" Cole let the weapons fall. They clattered on the hard-packed earth, loud as judgment in the sudden silence. His hands moved slowly to his gun belt, unbuckled it with deliberate care. "Kick them away!" Cole obeyed, watching his weapons spin across the compound toward the far wall. Defenseless now except for the hideout gun in his boot and the knife strapped to his forearm under his shirt. "Now kneel." Cole dropped to his knees on the cold stone, head bowed like a penitent before the altar. But his fingers found the knife's handle, worked it free from its sheath. "Any last words, Iron Hand Mitchell?" Cole raised his head, met Marcus's triumphant gaze. "Just one." "What?" "Carlos." The Mexican gunfighter's hands dropped to his Colts faster than thought. Twin muzzle flashes lit the compound as he put bullets through two of Marcus's men before they could react. The other two gunmen spun toward this new threat, giving Cole the opening he needed. The hideout gun spoke from his boot, and another of Marcus's killers dropped. Cole rolled left as rifle fire chewed stone where he'd been kneeling, came up with the knife in his hand. Steel met flesh, and the last gunman gurgled his life away on the compound's floor. Marcus stood alone now, both Army Colts trained on Cole's chest, 30 feet apart, too far for the knife, too close for mercy. "Traitor," Marcus snarled at Carlos. "I should have known better than to trust a greaser." "You should have known better than to hurt my daughter," Carlos replied calmly. "Some things matter more than money." Marcus squeezed both triggers. The Colts roared like thunder, but Carlos was already moving, rolling sideways as bullets sparked off stone. His own guns answered, and Marcus Blackwood staggered, red blooming across his shirt front. But the outlaw leader wasn't finished. Even wounded, even dying, his hatred kept him upright. He swung his guns toward Tommy, finger tightening on the triggers. "If I can't have my revenge, at least I can." Cole's knife took him in the throat before he could finish the thought. Marcus dropped his guns, clawed at the steel buried in his windpipe, then toppled backward into the dust. Silence settled over the compound like snow. Cole rushed to Tommy, cut his bonds with shaking hands. Father and son embraced while Carlos reloaded his weapons with practiced efficiency. "Why?" Cole asked his old friend. "Why the deception? Why make me think you'd betrayed me?" Carlos smiled, the expression sad and knowing. "Because Marcus had to believe I was truly his ally. Had to trust me completely. It was the only way to get close enough to matter when the shooting started. Your daughter was never killed by Marcus Blackwood. She lives happily in Sonora with her husband and children. But Marcus believed the lie because he wanted to believe it. Men like him, they think everyone can be bought if the price is right." Cole helped Tommy to his feet, checking the boy for serious injuries. Bruises, cuts, maybe a cracked rib, but nothing that wouldn't heal. They'd both heal, given time. "It's over, Pa?" Tommy asked. Cole looked around the compound, at the dead men, at the blood soaking into the earth, at the weapons scattered like broken promises across the stone. 20 years of deception finally laid to rest. The true killer of Dodge City dead at last. "Yeah, son, it's over." They buried Sarah 3 days later in the cemetery overlooking the ranch she'd loved. Half the territory came to pay their respects. Ranchers and shopkeepers, cowboys and clerks, all united in grief for a good woman taken too soon. Sheriff Jake Harrison read from the Bible while Cole and Tommy stood silent beside the grave. Carlos waited nearby, hat in hand, ready to ride south toward whatever redemption awaited him in the desert. After the service, as the mourners drifted away, Cole made his decision about the future. "I'm hanging up my guns for good this time," he told Tommy. "No more violence. No more killing. We'll work the ranch, build something clean and honest from what's left." Tommy nodded, but his young eyes held questions. What if more trouble comes? What if there are others like Marcus out there? Cole considered this, then walked to where his gun belt lay wrapped in oiled leather. He buckled it around his waist one last time, drew the Colt, checked its action. Then I'll teach you to shoot, he said quietly. Teach you to defend what's yours. But only for defense, son. Only when there's no other choice. He handed Tommy the gun, watched his son feel its weight, its responsibility. Some lessons are too important to leave unlearned, but some mistakes are too costly to repeat. Father and son walked back toward the ranch house together, toward whatever future they could build from the ashes of the past. Behind them, Sarah's grave stood peaceful in the morning sun, finally free from the shadows that had haunted them all. The frontier had claimed its due in blood and grief. Now it was time to plant something better in its place. The end.